Come with me as I get stuck at the airport for 20 hours while pumping for twins. No, but for real, this was the first snow of the year. It was absolutely insane getting to the airport, but I got there, found a pumping pod, started pumping, and then there was an announcement that the airport was closing because of the snow. What started as a 2-hour delay turned into a 9-hour delay, so I got really comfortable with this pumping pod at the airport. It was my first time ever using one of these nursing pods, and I was so impressed. Now, the pumping pods don't have sinks, so I brought these pump wipes with me, and they worked really, really well when I didn't have access to a sink. The pods were super clean and quiet and private. They had outlets. It was honestly a nice escape from the airport when it was time for me to pump. We finally boarded the plane, though, and then sat here for 3 hours waiting for de-icing. I think everyone had given up at this point, so it was a pretty empty flight. Made it to Minneapolis, and by this point, I had missed both of my connecting flights, so I got booked for the last flight of the day that was going to Cincinnati. This is one of the lactation rooms at the Minneapolis airport. It had a changing table, a sink, 3 different chairs. Side note, I feel like these are pretty phallic images for this room. This lactation room didn't have a lock on the door, and thankfully no one came in while I was in there, but I feel like that could be really awkward. But I was so glad to finally have access to a private sink. It was an automatic sink though, so the water kept turning off on me. But after using pump wipes all day, I was just really glad to give my pump parts a really deep clean. My final flight was delayed 3 hours, but I finally made it to Cincinnati at 3 in the morning. The next day was a full day at the Procter & Gamble headquarters with Pampers. They had amazing accommodations there for pumping and breastfeeding moms. Back at the hotel, I kept all my pumped milk in the mini fridge and used the sink in my room to clean all my pump parts. Then it was finally time to head back home. I packed all of my milk in a cooler backpack. TSA did take a little bit longer than normal, but nothing crazy. Before I left, I filled these gallon bags with ice from the hotel. It surprisingly kept everything nice and cool. During my layover, I was able to pump again, and I went to one of the restaurants at the airport and just asked them to refresh my ice. And I went to one of the restaurants at the airport and just asked them to refresh my bag of ice, which they were happy to do. Finally made it home with all of my milk still cold and was able to stash it in our deep freeze.